Okay, so at shoot-around, Caitlin Clark was asked about her name being used and being weaponized, and this was her reaction.
It's not something I can control, so, you know, I don't put too much thought and time into thinking about things like that, and to be honest, I don't see a lot of it. Like I've said, like, basketball is my job. Like, everything on the outside, I can't control that, so I'm not going to spend time thinking about that. You know, people can talk about what they want to talk about, create conversations about, you know, whatever it is, but I think for myself, like, you know, I'm just here to play basketball.
And, I mean, let's remember, she just got out of college. She's trying, you know, her team's not very good in Indiana. She's, you know, facing the typical rookie stuff that anyone faces, whether you're in the W or you're in the bigs. And, you know, that's the stuff that's going on. So then there was a response, actually. There was a response on social media from Connecticut Suns player DeJounte Carrington, who basically was saying that, you know, you have a voice, and that when you have that voice, you need to speak out, whether it is against weaponizing your name for racism, bigotry, misogyny, xenophobia, homophobia, etc. Basically, Carrington was saying that's a voice that needs to be used against these things. And so whether it was Caitlin Clark who rethought it, or her people could have rethought it and said, hey, listen, you know, because there is a lot going on. There's, you know, she came back and was asked again before the game, and this is what she had to say.
I think it's disappointing. I think, you know, everybody in our world, you know, deserves the same amount of respect. The women on our league deserve the same amount of respect. So people should not be using my name to push those agendas. It's disappointing. You know, it's not acceptable. But yeah, I mean, this league is a league I grew up admiring and wanting to be a part of. Like, some of the women in this league were my biggest idols and role models growing up, and helped me want to achieve this moment right here that I get to play in every single night. So just treating every single woman in this league with the same amount of respect, I think is just a basic human thing that everybody should do. Like, you know, just be a kind person and treat them, you know, how you would want to be treated. And I think it's, you know, very simple.
I thought that was a great answer.
That is a great answer.
I thought, you know, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if you try to say too much without really understanding what's going on. Now, some of the vets in the league have that luxury of the W has always taken on some big issues.
Of course, yeah.
They have always taken on big issues, and they do not shy away from it, and it is something that really does make them stand out apart from other leagues. So my question is it fair to ask Caitlin Clark that she needs to use her voice?
I pause because Caitlin Clark is 22 years old, and we're asking her to do more than be a great basketball player. That's asking her to take on a role that I don't think she wants to take on. I don't think that was ever her ambition, to use her platform to do anything other than be a great basketball player and be a role model for the little girls that she, like, just like she was looking up to women in the WNBA.
Well, Charles Barkley also didn't want to be a role model when he was young in the NBA, and yet, you know, the Bible verse, to those who have given much, much is expected in return. And I get that, but I just think, whoa, like let's tread carefully. Let's not be. She's damned if she does. She's damned if she doesn't.
Of course, and I think she wants to be a basketball role model. I just don't think she was prepared to be asked these political questions, or to take a stance on something, or to tell us what you think about X, Y, or Z. When she's like, dude, we're playing the Mystics. I'm just trying to get through pregame. Like, well, I think that is an introduction to. But again, is she being supported in that way to help her navigate that as a 22-year-old, still figuring out who she is and what it looks like to be a pro, and what it looks like on and off the court? I think there is that is a learning process.
And listen, I say this with college athletes. Once you sign an NIL deal, you represent those companies that are
Yes.
paying you money, and you are now a professional, and you have to act like a professional. So I get it. It does seem like it's a little lot. Let's bring in our expert on this. LaChina Robinson from ESPN is joining us. Oh, my goodness. Thank you so much for joining us here on a
Yes, thank
Saturday
you.
on Peggy and Dionne. I feel like there's headlines every single day, which is great for the W, but I feel like a teeter-totter. I just keep going back and forth. I don't know which way I should feel about these daily headlines when it comes to Caitlin Clark.
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on the show. I haven't gotten to hear the entirety of your conversation, but I did hear the last couple of comments. And yeah, we are in a very interesting time, to say the least, in women's sports and in particular around the WNBA, because as the sport has grown, a ton, right? I've covered it for the last 17 years, and this stretch that we're seeing right now is just out of this world in terms of the popularity. Like, we're hitting this stride we've always wanted to see, where the sport is in everyday conversations and the level of play is high and the investment and the ticket sales and the viewership and all that. But it's also coming with a lot of side conversations and narratives that are, in my opinion, taking away from the greatness of the sport. And I want to take a look at that in two ways. Number one is, I'm saying that because I feel like in stretches the narrative has dominated the conversation more than the play on the court. And watching these women and what they do, they're the best of the world. So you want them to get the attention they deserve for the right reasons. But also, sport has always been an entry point to having other conversations about worldly things, whether that's race or gender. It brings people together from all different backgrounds and often opens the door to have some of those tougher conversations. And quite honestly, we've needed to have some of those tougher conversations when it comes to the WNBA, because it's a league of predominantly Black women. And I feel like that statistic alone has impacted the level of investment in the league over the years. And that's not a conversation that we're having in a vacuum. This is, that's how Black women are impacted on a macro level in the world in general. So I absolutely love and adore Caitlin Clark as a person, as a player. She has been thrusted into a very difficult situation in the spotlight. She is the most popular athlete in the world right now, I would say. And so some of these conversations, though difficult, I think need to be had, but we also need to give her some grace and the WNBA some grace, because it's a spotlight that is brighter than we've ever seen. The expectations, the demands are higher, the stakes are higher. So it's really an interesting period all the way around for those reasons.
Is it fair that she's being asked these questions, a couple weeks into her career and being asked to make statements one way or another? Is that fair, or is that just part of it?
It comes with the territory. When it comes to media and sports, unless we're talking about questions that are about your personal life or things that, we would all agree are just not good questions, which Caitlin Clark was peppered with many of those to start, some inappropriate moments and situations. But this, I think, was totally in bounds. And she will learn and grow through situations like this to expect there to be conversations around various narratives, and to start to be intentional about developing her takes and her thoughts around these kind of things. I also believe that she's going to continue to learn about the WNBA and what this league stands for. This has always been a league of women who have had to be the voice of the minority, be the voice of advocacy, be the voice of women's sports. And that, be it fair or not, is often the burden of women in sport who have to speak to some of these challenges. And so I definitely think the line of questioning is in bounds. I do think we have to keep in mind that she is 22 years old, but I heard someone say before I got on this call, to who much is given, much is expected. And so I believe Caitlin will rise to the occasion. I thought that second clip of her answer was great.
Yep.
She has handled media very well throughout her career, including giving flowers to women who have come before her and paved the way. And so she will learn and grow through the spotlight, but I think the line of questioning is in bounds and totally fair.
LaChina Robinson joining us from ESPN. And congratulations on being named to NBC Sports coverage of the Olympics in Paris this summer. You'll be an analyst calling the games. That's so exciting, and I think it's so fantastic. I have been really, really impressed with the women basketball analysts at ESPN. I just think that you guys are just like knocking it out of the park. I think it's fantastic. And you join us here on our CarX Tire and Auto Hotline. I just have to ask you this. What is the league doing right? And what does the W need to improve on that they are finding now with all of these eyeballs on the league?
Yeah, the W is doing a lot of things better than they have in the past. And I think the best thing they're doing right now is allowing the women of this league to sell themselves. They're giving them a microphone. They're giving them a platform. When you look at all of their content, it is being led by the women who are playing the game. And to me, that brings just a level of authenticity, and you feel a closeness to these players. When you look at men's sports over time, we hear about men athletes when we look at magazine covers, when we look at billboards, on commercials, et cetera. You guys probably are familiar with the figure, but for very long, the number has been less than 1% of all sports sponsorships have gone to women's sports. So we are forced. We get men everywhere. The WNBA is now understanding that for them to have success, they've got to put these women in the forefront, and they got to ride their coattails, their personalities, their philanthropic endeavors, their voices in advocacy. And I feel like the league has done a great job of embracing that. Where there's still work to be done is first and foremost, availability of preseason games. I'm sure you guys saw all the Scoop conversation around that.
Yeah.
You've got to make the product accessible. And that is just a general point of suggestion from me for the WNBA, is just making these games more successful. I hear all the time about blackout areas for league pass games and not being able to watch people want to have access to the product itself, and you can't lose sight of that. They're doing a much better job. Kathy Engelbert has taken major steps towards expansion. That's something that still needs to continue. Now adding a team in Canada and also in Golden State, those are great starts. I mean, you're building huge communities through expansion of WNBA footprint. I think Golden State is maybe now up to 12,000 pre-sold season tickets.
Wow.
That's amazing.
Wow.
And so the game is growing in that way. We still need more roster spots, right? We're seeing first rounders, second rounders getting cut. So we need more places for women. I mean, 144 spots is just not enough. 12 teams. But again, that's expected to grow to 16 over the next few years. But we do need more of a developmental league or some spots on every roster so players can have their opportunity to be the next up. And I think those are the biggest challenges now. But ultimately, this next CBA, if the players opt out of it, and the media rights deal is going to be huge for the WNBA, because there's a potential for a lot of revenue, a lot more than what they're getting right now through that deal.
We feel like we got a great one in Angel Reese here in Chicago, and having her voice around the game has been already wonderful and delightful, and it's been challenging as well, because obviously they've been in the headlines because of the first matchup against Caitlin Clark, and now tomorrow we get another one. What is like that league wide, or I guess outside of our little bubble here in Chicago? What is the impression of Reese and the Sky and what they're bringing into this season?
Oh man, they've surprised some people. I know they've hit a difficult stretch in the season right now, but this is a Sky organization that, after winning the championship, they got one more good year with Candace Parker and Courtney Vandersloot and, that whole crew that brought a trophy there. And then the team just kind of was disbanded ultimately through free agency. We were spending so many summertime Chicago days during WNBA season, having a good time in the city. And we were like, this may never return now with all their stars choosing to go elsewhere, Allie Quigley.
Yeah.
But with the addition of Dwayne Wade to the ownership group, I think that really invigorated the organization. People were excited about bringing a former player to the ownership group because that just kind of changes the dynamic. And obviously D Wade, not only being a champion himself, but he understands what's needed for an organization to take that next step and to be a destination for free agency. So that definitely helped. And then the hiring of Teresa Weatherspoon was major. Her reputation precedes her as a winner, as an icon in women's basketball, as someone who just knows how to galvanize a community and how to motivate. So having her added to that organization, automatic credibility, automatic excitement, and she's the right coach for this moment. I know, again, it's going to take some time going from now Kalia Copper also leaving. That's huge.
Yeah.
I mean, you're taking basically all of your foundational players have left. So it's going to take time. But then you add the Twin Towers and Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese, two of the most recognizable names in all of women's basketball right now through the success that they had in college and their brand reach. I mean, Chicago has done some really, really good things here in the last year or so. And I think the outside perception is that this is an organization that is not only taking a step up from a business standpoint, but also in terms of what we'll see on the court. Some different faces. It's a new regime. They're still figuring a lot out, but there's so much to be excited about in terms of what they can expect in the future.
And Camila Cardoso will replace Elizabeth Williams in the starting lineup now for the Sky, as Williams is out with a meniscus injury. So both rookies, both first-round picks, Camila Cardoso and Angel Reese, are now starters for the Sky, one of the youngest teams in the league. So I would say the only thing, having been in this market covering sports for the last 30 years, LaChina, I say, make them available, because make it so that Caitlin Clark isn't the only one we are hearing from. Like, we want these ladies to be available. Make the women a part of our community so that it's easy for us to say, oh, this is must-have TV. You must see. This has to be a clip on the news every night. This has to be on the local sports radio station. So that's my hope, is that they grow and understand that, let's keep it going and let's get these ladies in the forefront as well. So
when you say availability, in what ways would you like to see that?
It's so hard to get interviews. Like, I would tell you honestly, and I know the Sky. I have tickets to the game next week. Never on the radio station. We have tried for 10 years. Yeah. We can never get a guest on the radio station. Constantly we were trying, and it's very difficult. And, when you're on the radio, you're in people's homes. You're in their cars. Yeah. They get to know you. And so, and Dionne is with our top-rated television station here in Chicago, ABC 7. And, you do get to go out to practices, and you get your clips there. But individual stories, not happening.
It's not happening.
It doesn't happen. You get what everybody else does, and you might as well just clip it off of, what's online. So, So that's just my hope, is that they ingrain themselves a little bit more and try to do more than what, some of these, 15-year Major League Baseball players do, But
yeah, no, That's interesting to hear. I was going to that was my next question, was going to be, do you feel like you have less or more access to them than you do NBA players? Because that's one thing that I will say about the WNBA that I've experienced in my time covering it, is these women are usually the most accessible. I mean, they sign autographs. They are
they definitely
in the community,
do that.
all of that. And so that's disappointing to hear. I hope that. And I will, one thing that may be a challenge is sometimes as these teams are growing and developing, they have a lot of changes in the PR position.
Yes. That has been an issue. Yes.
Yeah, those relationships then are not built, in that trust. And hopefully that'll be something that, with them getting to a good place in the front office, that may help the growth of their access for platforms like this, which I think is important.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you're right to think of it that way. Like it is, I'd say it's pretty similar to the NBA as far as our access right now. But I also think that, as we've said, the Sky are young and they're finding their groove and they're not used to this kind of attention, right? So I'm trying to have grace and space for that to allow them to kind of find that footing and understanding the demands that are now on them.